put it in like that. You have to rinse it first.
That's baked on, Alfredo.
It's baked on, it's never gonna work.
Dish issues? Trust your dishwasher with Cascade Platinum. It powers through your toughest stuck-on food, better than Finish. Cascade.
You can't put it in like that. You have to rinse it first.
That's baked on, Alfredo.
It's baked on, it's never gonna work.
Hello, and welcome to this experiment that we're calling the Metagame, the live streaming show that we'll be doing, that hopefully we'll be doing as long as the video and the audio and the streaming and the YouTubes all continue to work. So we've set this up as a live streaming event on YouTube, but YouTube is kind of funny. It has two types of events, just live ones that you launch and scheduled ones. And no one that I've talked to, including myself, has ever actually got the YouTube scheduled events to really work properly. So it's my hope that people are actually seeing this and that the scheduled system actually worked in this case. Otherwise, we might just have to try this again, just as a spontaneous event. So, all right. What I have here is I have a pop-up window with chat comments, just to kind of make sure if people can hear me and see me. So if you can, just kind of give me a shout out in the little comments window so I can see that happening. And what we're going to do is we're going to discuss a topic on this show. The reason it's called the meta game is because we're going to be talking not only about board games, but we're going to be talking about board games as well, kind of talking about the meta game of the board game hobby. So what I'm going to do in this series is I'm going to present a topic, kind of a live segment, as it were. I'll present the live segment, and then afterwards we'll have a short Q&A about it and anything else that comes up. So I just want to check the comments real quick. Good audio. Oh, quite loud. Sorry. The quite loud audio might just be me. Let me see if I can turn the gain down. Hopefully that helps the audio not destroy anyone's ears like the problem I had earlier. Okay, I see a comment that we're good to go. So let's go. All right. So, like I said, I'm Chaz Marler of Pair of Dice Paradise, and welcome, like I said, to this test run of the metagame. And what we're going to do is, if you're just joining us now, we're going to present a live segment to you all, followed by a short Q&A session on that topic and anything else that comes up. Today, I'm going to be taking questions using the YouTube chat thingy, so don't worry about Twitter or that I Ask You or whatever that new software is. We're just going to be using old school YouTube chat. And I may not get to every question, but really, if not having your YouTube question responded to immediately is the worst thing that happens to you today, consider it a good day. But we'll see what we can do, and we'll do what we can. All right, so let's kick things off with the presentation of today's topic, which is it really okay to publicly hate a board game? The main thing that started me thinking about this was the review of Tenzi that was posted on Monday. Now, the Tenzi review was an episode in my Thrift Sift series where I talk about games that I get secondhand, usually from thrift stores and stuff like that. The reviews are typically, done tongue-in-cheek. And there are also videos where I do a lot of experimentation with different ideas and things. And usually, the games that I feature on Thrift Sift aren't my favorite games in the world. In certain ways, that can actually make those types of videos more difficult to produce. And I think the Tenzi review was actually a perfect example of why this is. First off, before I go any further into any rationalization, let me put this out there first. Yes, I definitely think Tenzi is a terrible game. But because it involves virtually no decision-making or player interaction in any way. It's like, hey kid, roll these dice until they're all the same. Then what? You win. Tenzi is my own personal least favorite game that I've ever endured playing in my life. And so because of that, I have to stand behind the opinions that I expressed about that game in my review. And I do. But what I want to say is, of course, along with that, what's important here is that review is just one person's opinion. All of these videos, everything on the internet, it's just one person's opinion. This one just happened to be made by some guy with a camera and a microphone and an internet access. And that right there, that's the important point that I think that some people miss. No, not the point of self-rationalizing a platitude of saying, oh, it's just my opinion, so cut me some slack. No, not that point. The point I think some people miss is that if you're a guy with a camera and a microphone and an internet connection, your opinions are inevitably going to be held to a higher standard by your audience. Once you establish yourself as an expert in a field, then your opinions are potentially going to carry a lot more clout. And that's why I think it's actually very important to make the distinction between feeling superior to a game like Tenzi and feeling superior to the people who actually play and enjoy that game. Dislike a game all you want, Just provide examples of the reasons why. And, that's healthy. And of course, be open to listening and considering the reasons why others like or dislike that game as well. That's even healthier. But looking down on people just because they enjoy a game that you don't, even Tenzi, that's not cool. If someone out there, anyone, finds enjoyment in a game, any game, even one that you think is critically flawed to the point where the game becomes a parody of itself in futility, well, if someone enjoys playing that game, then that is absolutely all that matters. More power to them. Welcome to the hobby. You are a fully equal fellow gamer, even if that game is Tenzi. I think that industry professional Brittany Bowe from GameWire said it best in a tweet that she posted once. She said, saying that someone is not a real gamer is like saying that someone is not a real eater just because they don't like the same food that you do. So it's really something that we as gamers need to keep ourselves in check with. Now, what I'll do is I'll wrap up my monologue here. I'll wrap this up my favorite way that I like to do everything, by bringing it back to me. When I review any game negatively, the primary challenges that I face are, one, to provide the reasons behind the opinions that you form about a game. Otherwise, you increase the odds of just coming across as a bully. And coming across as a bully actually is something that I really worry about with anything in the Thrift Sift series, especially the Tenzi one, because of number two. You got to make sure that you keep the focus of your opinion on the game and don't let that negativity spill over into a criticism of the people who don't share your same negative opinion of the game. Now, in the Tenzi video, I felt that this was especially challenging to do because one of the things that I wanted to do in it was specifically contrast some of the glowing praise that I found on Amazon.com in their reviews against my own experience with the game. And, to do that, I had to show the reviews written by others and respond directly to them. And I worried quite a bit that doing this could come across as criticizing the people who made those comments instead of the foibles of the game itself. Now, here's the question. Did I succeed at keeping the criticism focused on the game? Well, the answer to that is not up to me to decide. That is something that's going to be interpreted by each individual viewer of the video. But what is up to me is that, as a guy with a camera and a microphone and an internet connection, to remain aware of the impact that the words that I record can have, while not diluting the words that I want to convey, and still choose those words wisely. And so that is my opinion on whether or not it's proper to publicly hate a board game and why. So there you go. So now what I want to do is I want to turn to the comments here that are building up and go through here and see what people have to say in response to this idea and in response to anything else that comes up. So let me just move this over here. Hello, little comment tab. All right. First comment is hi. And the second one is hi. Okay, we're going to skip through the greet. Hi everyone. Hello. And I imagine you've all have met each other in the chat window. So we're going to skip by the hellos. Okay, I'm going to actually skip down where we were prepping and people were hearing me click in preparation. I'm going to try and find some of the actual responses to the video first. 10.4, audio is good. That's good. All right. Here we go. First one that I found. Viewer named Chuck mentioned that opinions are valid regardless of if they are positive or negative. Now, I agree with that. It's more useful information for fellow gamers to base their purchase decisions on. That is a good point. And I see a lot of debate going back and forth on the BGG forums and Twitter and other places. The question comes up every now and then, is a negative review actually more useful than a positive review? And I don't think so. But I do. Here's though why I think maybe they get the attention that they do. And I'll be honest, as a Mystery Science Theater fan and also a fan of just sarcastic humor in general, I know that sometimes I'll go, like when I'm looking for Dice Tower reviews of new games or stuff, I will go to the review search and I'll filter and I'll find the ones with the lowest ratings and I'll kind of watch those first, because someone being critical of a product is oftentimes can be more entertaining. The reason that anyone tunes into the internet is usually for one of two reasons: to obtain content that they're looking for, or to be entertained. And so if you're looking for content, you're probably going to be looking for a specific game or a review with a higher rating so you can find a new game. But if you're looking to be entertained, you're probably going to be, at least in my experience, looking for the reviews with a lower rating just because they are more fun to watch. It's a thing that happens that I call sometimes the Black Pearl phenomenon. For example, if you imagine every single review out there is a white pearl on a long necklace, long string of pearls. And if you have this long necklace of pearls, if you have one black pearl on it, say a negative review that comes up, one black pearl on that pearl necklace, that's what's going to be the thing that captures people's attention. That's what their eye is going to be drawn to, that black pearl. And it's the same thing with negative reviews and any sort of negative entertainment. That's going to draw the people's attention. And it doesn't make it more important. It just makes it stand out more, I think. But in terms of positivity versus negativity in the review, I don't think anyone is any more valid than the other one or any more important. I don't think posting negative reviews ordains a reviewer as being more legitimate, because that's like saying you're only you're only a quality reviewer if you make yourself miserable by talking about products that you don't want to review. Anyone who if they just happen to want to talk about products that they like, so be it, as long as they're talking from their gut, from their heart, from the spirit and the mind and the soul, Let's move on to the next question. Sorry, that was my answer to one question. So I'm obviously not as fast at this as Tom is. So yet another thing to put on the pile of things I need to work on. Brian mentioned that he agrees about the positivity, negativity thing, as long as it's backed up with legitimate criticism rather than irrational opinion. Absolutely. That's why I wanted to make sure that, with the Tenzi review, since that's the topic of the day here, I wanted to make sure that in that review I mentioned, hey, I think this game is ridiculous, but it is because of the lack of decision making, the lack of player interaction, the fact that that's what it's based on. There's that's all there is to it, and in my opinion, this could be so much better in every way, and not just come out saying, hey, I'm going to make fun of this game and say funny things just to be silly. Always trying to have some meat to something like that, a presentation like that, even if it is a humorous presentation, still trying to have some meat at its core. I think for any reviewer, that's really important to do. Okay. Dave asks a nice question. We're up to question number 3. Dave asks, how can you claim to love games if you can't hate on them? The darkness and the light. And that, I agree with that as well. I mean, if anyone only talks about the games that they like, that might be their prerogative. They only want to because that's they don't want to talk down about something. And that's fine. I'm sure, though, that even those people that speak positively in the media they produce exclusively, I'm sure that those people still have opinions about games, and sometimes they have negative opinions about games. And again, having them choose to only speak about the things positively, that's totally their prerogative, and I don't think that makes what they say any less legitimate than someone who comes out and just spews a bunch of garbage about certain genres or games or anything like that. So, all right. Let's see. Christopher mentions that Munchkin isn't good. It's still fun for me to goof around and play with, though. Munchkin was another game I was going to actually mention in this. I was going to talk about Tenzi, and I was going to talk about Cards Against Humanity, and I was going to talk about Munchkin. Each three of those games are not my favorites, but each for different reasons. Munchkin, of those three, is one that it's not my favorite, but I will play it with the others, and I will have a good time playing it with others. And so that was another point that I think is valid to this, that Munchkin, as a classic example of a game that a lot of people think isn't a good game, it doesn't matter. Are you having fun playing it with your friends? Then it's the interactivity with the other players you're playing with that matters. That's all there is to it. The game, in that sense, is inconsequential. So that really gets on my nerves sometimes where people say that certain genres of games or certain types of games are better. Now, it's a tool to facilitate interactivity and enjoyment. And if you are having enjoyment, then so be it. The game is a success in that right, period. So, all right. Whew. Okay. Gurgurpurr 3000 mentions, is it worse than Sorry? Because nothing is worse than Sorry. Well, it's just one person's opinion. But in my opinion, give it a try. If you have more than one dice at home, you can give the game a try in about 10 seconds and judge for yourself. So, all right, let's see if I can get some good meaty questions here. Rumpelsink. Rumpelsink chimed in and mentioned that he usually checks out the negative reviews of stuff that he may be interested in, because they usually make specific points as to why they dislike it. And that's a very good point to bring up, as long as there's a valid point being made as to why. That, I think, has a lot of merit to it. Positive reviews often just gush without saying much. And that's a good point, too. Whereas a negative review should have facts, or at least, facts are relative in that case, but they should have points as to why the person is coming to the conclusions they are. Yeah, positive reviews should have points leading to why they're coming up to the decisions that they are as well. That's a really good point. The problem I have seen people mention that they have with positive reviews lots of times is that the person comes out and they're like, this game is great! Oh my gosh, this great game is so awesome! I loved this game! And they see that as not having credibility, because lots of times when the person gets excited about a game, either in their excitement, they'll exclude the remembering to make those valid points as to why, or in saying something, in speaking about something positively, sometimes those positive points as to why are actually harder for the viewer to pick out than when watching something negative. It's really easy to, say, I love this, and just kind of get into it and feel the excitement for it. When you're trying to do something, have a constructive critique of something negatively, sometimes the broadcaster will go out of their way to make a very clear outline as to why. And sometimes when you're doing positive, those points just get lost in the excitement. So yeah, I agree. Positive reviews can come across as gushing, and it's something to really keep in mind when reviewing something positively, is to continue to make those same bullet points as to build up your argument as to why you think something is great. I've seen lots of times when that fails to happen, especially a reviewer that creates a lot of positive reviews that fails to make that happen, their reviews are viewed as less legitimate because people think, oh, they just love everything, or oh, they're whatever. But a lot of times it's just because of the excitement behind their energy for the product, and they just get so excited talking about it because it's so much easier to talk positively about something. Unlike trying to describe talking about something positively, which can sometimes slow you down in a quagmire of words. So let's move on. Okay. Oh, thank you. YouTube comments just moved on me. So I lost my place of where everyone was. So I'm going to scroll up a little bit, but then if this jumps again, I'm just going to pick up wherever it jumps to. I'm going to let YouTube lead the way, because nothing could ever go wrong with trusting the internet. Okay. Okay, Sit Down Standard mentioned that sometimes it feels like our community can suffer from loving snarkiness. Unfortunately, people just don't love living things. Well, we've talked about that a little bit. I myself, I know I suffer from that, not only in the way I talk about things sometimes, but also in the media that I consume. Snarkiness is one of the ways to make something more accessible sometimes for a presenter. If they have that attitude in their presentation of snarkiness, it can be not a crutch, but it can ease the ability to make something that can kind of be more relatable to people. So I can see that it's not even really a trap to fall into unless it gets in the way of the content you're trying to produce. If the function of how you present overrides the actual content that you're presenting, it can happen with anybody, myself included, and any presenter. All right. Ryan mentioned that he always appreciates examples of games you find similar to the unfavorable game with the one that you think does it better, if that makes sense. Yes, that's... had a friend once that taught a really great lesson to me just in casual conversation. We were trying to go out to dinner and figure out where we were going to go out to dinner to. And he said, let's go to IHOP or whatever. And someone said, I don't like IHOP. I don't want to go to IHOP. And he turned to him and said, that's fine. That's great. But in our family, we have a rule. If you put the kibosh on what one person wants to have for dinner, that's fine, but you got to come up with something new. And they're like, how about McDonald's? And someone else said, don't like McDonald's. Well, then they had to come up with something new. This example brought to you by McDonald's. So when complaining about a game, I think the same principle applies. If you don't like a certain game, I think it is really relevant to show, hey, here's games that I think fix what this game has broken. And I think showing those practical examples is a very healthy comparison to make when reviewing games. All right. Okay. Dave mentioned that he thinks, I think, and I don't think that this is accurate, that somehow negative reviews seem more honest. I think there's an innate cynicism in Dave, though. And I can see that very, very much. In fact, Christopher, right below Dave, agrees with Dave. So I think there's this consensus. So, Dave, don't worry. You're all right. We all think so. Hang in there, Dave. Okay, let's move on to the next comment. Oh, things moved again. I'm sorry. Oh, yep. There. Okay. I'm going to go up just a little bit. Hater's going to hate. Munchin's going to munch. Huh. Thank you. Oh, thank you, Marguerite. Okay, the last question that's on topic about this that I'll mention before we switch to just the general Q&A type questions for a few minutes is that Rawin DK mentioned that Munchkin is not a game, it's an activity in their opinion. That's an interesting statement, and I think I see where you're going with that, but I'm not 100% sure that I agree anymore. Before this week, I may have agreed with that, and I'll tell you why. And I'll do it, once again, using my wonderful example of Tenzi. Watch the review on the dice tower. So with Tenzi, you roll dice until all the dice are the same face. A game of Tenzi can take literally like 10, 20 seconds. But it is a game because it is a game in the definition that it is an activity with strictly delineated rules to achieve an objective. And so you are doing an activity with a goal and a rule set to guide it. And by definition, I think Scott Nicholson, in his Ivory Dice Tower series from Board Game Breakfast way back when, he presented that idea, and that stuck with me. I think he did a really good job with that, with everything he does. So, in that sense, Munchkin is a game because it is an activity with a goal, with a clearly delineated set of rules to achieve that goal. So now I think it's a very loose game, a very open game, very light game. That's the word I'm looking for. Very light game. But I don't think anymore that after working with Tenzi and everything and seeing that, my opinion has changed that just if a game is super duper mega light, that doesn't necessarily make it not a game anymore. So, but that is a very interesting topic of discussion. At least to me, and hopefully to anyone else that's still watching. All right. So for the last few minutes, this was great. What I would like to see as well, before we transition to just any general Q&A questions or still questions about this topic that have come up, since this is kind of our inaugural test run of this new series, be sure in the comments below in the video and any feedback to me directly on Twitter, at Dice Paradise on Twitter, or anywhere else, the contact form on the paradise.com website. Leave me some feedback. Let me know what worked, what didn't work. Does this format, any new format's going to take a little tweaking, but kind of the presentation and then the echo and response thing we got going on here. Let me know what you think so that we can make further improvements to this system and really make it something special. Okay, so let's move on to the other comments and questions. Okay, Tim Sperling asks, off topic, what's your favorite MST3K episode? I have an answer for that one. I've been waiting to be asked that for years. Three favorites. First one would be my very first Mystery Science Theater 3000 episode that I ever saw, which was Return to Gore. And that was the one with Jack Palance in the array of strange hats. So that was the very first one I saw, and I just laughed hysterically the whole time. I couldn't believe there was a show like that. And then there is EGAW, which has, I think his name, Richard Klein. I think his last name is Klein. He's the guy that played Jaws in the James Bond movies in the 70s. He plays this caveman that stumbles on to a trio of maroons in California, and wackiness ensues. So EGAW is another very good Mystery Science Theater episode. And the other one is Cave Dwellers with Ator the Magnificent in it. So Return to Gore / Outlaw, it goes by two names, EGAW and Cave Dwellers. Those are my favorite Mystery Science Theater episodes. Okay. Another question of what are the top 3 games you ever played? Okay, well, even though that you made the spelling in your question super awesome, I'm not going to answer that, because if I answer that, it's going to spoil the top 100 games of all times list for Chaz Marler that I apparently need to make now because that Kickstarter stretch goal funded. So, no spoilers for you. Not now. Not ever. Okay, let's move on. Which of the Gale Force 9 games do you like the best? Ooh, now, to be fair, I haven't played all the Gale Force 9 games. The favorite one I've played, though, has been Spartacus. However, hot tip, free tip for anyone out there watching, if you're going to play Spartacus, don't make the mistake that I made with Spartacus. We were at a game club meeting one night with like 30, 40 people there, and this guy came up and said, "Hey, do you want to play Spartacus?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure." My buddy that I was with, we're like, "Let's go." First game of Spartacus that me and my buddy had ever played. And we sat down, and it's like, there's a lot of people at this table. There's like 7 people. How many people does Spartacus play? And the guy starts getting out Spartacus. He goes, oh, I have every single expansion, and I even have some homemade ones I printed out. So we'll play all 7 people, and here's some new rules. And the game of Spartacus took nearly 4 hours. I don't even remember the last half of it because I was, I think, in fetal position under the table. But any new game like that you introduce to new players, if you're introducing it to new players, it might be a good idea to maybe not overload it with a bunch of homemade expansions and all the expansions, so that they can actually get a feel for the game and enjoy it better. Because I would play it again, but I would play the base game only. It was, needless to say, an experience. Okay. Let's see here. Oh, thank you, YouTube comments. YouTube comments decided I was taking too long and they jumped again. All right. Dave, perhaps the previous Dave. I hope you're still doing okay, Dave. Hope you're hanging in there. But Dave also mentioned we would consider Chutes, Snakes, and Ladders a game, or at least most people would. An academic definition doesn't include things like that. Most people, and goodbye comment, you scrolled away. Most people think games are surely our definition is wrong. Okay, sorry, I think there was a couple of prepositions that scrolled away off the screen there. But I think we already covered that too, in that, like with the Tenzi example and the Munchkin example. Yeah, even if a game is really light, there's, it's still technically a game, I think. Chutes and Ladders, though, that's even an even more extreme example. You spin that spinner or roll that dice, and that's it. You don't have any decisions to make, really, except for, what you're going to also do while you're playing with your 5-year-old daughter to keep yourself from going insane while you play it. Some stories there I'll save for another day. Brian. Hi, Brian. Brian asks, in comment form, would you, which I'm assuming is me, would me consider Telestrations a game? Yeah, I would, but there's a caveat to that, of course, because I believe the actual instructions for Telestration has rules and an objective and a goal. But Telestrations falls into that activity category lots of times for people, but it does so willingly. Because Telestrations, like Balderdash, is one of those games where after a while, who cares about winning? Let's just do the game mechanisms because that's so much fun. And if there was technically a winner, we're not keeping score. And so the game may turn into an activity, and happily turn into an activity. But I think Telestrations I would still consider it a game. It's a game that people often just play as an activity, though. Ha! So I beat you. I beat your question. Try to trick me. Okay. Thank you, scrolling comments. All right. Feedback. Okay. Let's talk about this real quick. Can the resolution be higher than 360p? Not at the moment. Maybe soon. I did a lot of experiment. I did like 20 experimental videos on a different channel and set to private mode over the last few weeks in preparation for this. And I started out at a higher res, and I would get frames dropped. My internet speed is 10 megabit down and like 700 to 800 up. So I don't have super mega awesome internet connection. So when I did a higher resolution, I get frames dropped, and when frames would drop, the audio and the video would get out of sync. And so I'm trying really hard. I have absolutely everything else turned off that uses the internet in the house and everything. I might try bumping it up to 480p and higher reses with more experiments. But for this, especially this first initial episode, I wanted to go real safe. So I picked the 360p, which consistently worked without dropping any frames. So I apologize for the lower res. I hope the content is still worth watching and interacting with. And hopefully in the future, we'll learn how to tweak that so we can get as high as resolution as possible. But that's why it's 360p. Okay. Brandon mentions, just some helpful feedback about the camera being too close, maybe too close to the wall. That's out of necessity at the moment, actually. I am in my studio, which, if you could see it, well, I was going to pull the camera down and show you. But basically, I got my wall, me, a table, my tripod with my camera, my lights, another table, and my game shelf. And there's literally no room to walk between them at the moment. So there's zooming out isn't really an option at the moment unless you just want the camera to be looking out over lights and other cameras and stuff. So see what we can do in the future, of course, to continue to improve. Okay. Orioles fan 31, who is asking the question that will now be answered, is what's one game that you wanted to like, but it just fell flat when you played it? Oh boy, that is a good question. Off the top of my head, this is going to be a lame answer. Off the top of my head, I'm going to go back to Spartacus, but that was, I think, not the fault of the game, but the fault of the environment through which it was introduced. Oddly enough, another one is Battlestar Galactica, and I really, really, really wanted to like that game. And another game club meeting, again, the way that you introduce a game can be very important because got invited, me and that same buddy of mine got invited to play a game of Battlestar Galactica. It's like, yeah, this is awesome. So we sat down, they had all the expansions, but that was okay. They explained everything really well. In fact, they explained everything super well because they had played this game, I guess, every single weekend for the last 2.5 years or something. They knew the game system perfectly. And that was the problem. Me and my buddy, we were newbies to the game. We kind of just sat there watching the game be played around us. Everyone knew what they were doing. They were just like, when you have a conversation, you're watching a conversation between two people. Maybe they're talking about a movie and they've both watched the movie, but you haven't. And they're like, oh, remember that thing? Oh, but then the other thing happened. Oh, and then there was that guy with the shoes. Oh, the guy with the shoes. Well, don't carry the umbrella like that one guy did. Oh man, the whole game made as much sense to us and fell totally flat because it turned into this completely robotic exercise in gameplay. And it really fell flat. So, but again, I'd like to try it again, but I think that one also dial back and maybe just start with no expansions, the base set, and maybe a different play group or something. So, all right. Let's see. Any crossovers coming with Flip the Table in any capacity? Nothing in stone or anything yet, but oh my goodness, I hope so. Chris and the other guys from Flip the Table, they're awesome in what they do and they're awesome to work with. So yeah, I hope that there will be something with Flip the Table coming up in some capacity. Are those clouds real clouds? Well, yeah, they're real. They're not CGI. See someone asking something else. Oh, an emoticon. Thank you. Oh, Mark Streed from Board Game Corner. Hi, Mark. And your emoticon. Here, I'll reply back in kind. There. Actual physical real world emoticon for you. Okay. Kristen asks the very important question, have I ever flipped a game board when I've gotten upset? No. However, just last weekend, I was playing a game of Steampunk Rally. And Steampunk Rally, you have this little racetrack that your little steampunk machines are racing down. And some of them have mountains that if you go too fast or not carefully enough as you're traveling in this race, if you enter a space that has mountains, your little contraption you're building will take damage. So I was being extremely careful about how I was going through this racetrack, not taking any damage. Well, I played a really nasty card that put a mountain down in... I was ahead of like 4 other people, but still behind others. So, but I was ahead of like 4 people. So I played this card that put a mountain down in the space I was in. So anyone traveling up from behind me was going to get hit by this mountain, and I didn't have to worry about it. Well, immediately, like he had been saving it, waiting, immediately the next player played this card that said, oh, anybody in a space with a mountain in it immediately takes that mountain's damage on their contraption. Now, I didn't flip the table, but I did have to get up and walk away from the table for a second. It was all in good fun, and it was kind of just, being silly. But it was like, what? And just got up and had to walk away for a second. But so that's the closest that I have ever come to flipping a table that I will admit to. All right, a couple more questions here. Sorry to jump around in the comments so much, but again, hopefully with time, I'll figure out a better methodology for this. Let's see. Oh, Barry! Hey, I was talking to Barry just earlier today. He said he had a gaming session. He was going to try and pop on before it ended. I'm glad you could make it, Barry. Barry Dublé or Doublet. I always pronounce it Dublé, but I'm not sure. But Barry, who, of course, is in France and a contributor to Board Game Breakfast. Always a pleasure to speak with him. Anyway, Barry... I don't care what his question is. No. Barry asks, how many games are left on your shelf of shame unplayed? Well, I am happy to say that a year ago, I think I had 60 plus. I've whittled that down to about half at least over the course of last year, and I'm still continuing to whittle away on it, both with a combination of trying to play more games and also trying to curb my voracious acquisition disorder. So there you go. Okay. Chris asks, what is your favorite game mechanism? Does YouTube Q&A count as a game mechanism? No? Okay. I think my this may sound ironic, especially after the Tenzi review that we've been talking about, but I think my favorite game mechanic is using dice in different interesting ways. Not just rolling them as fast as you can to get them all the same side, but I'm thinking of like Arcadia Quest with its exploding dice mechanism, whatever. I love the idea of exploding dice. A game I really enjoy called Garden Dice. You actually lay out you use dice and you lay out things in a grid, and the dice can kind of have a ripple effect. And not really exploding, but kind of a ripple effect with those. And then also Alien Frontiers, how you actually use the dice in the worker placement mechanism. You're actually incorporating the dice into that. I thought that was brilliant, and I still love Alien Frontiers. So it's not one specific mechanism, but doing something neat with dice is something I really enjoy. Okay. Let's see. We got like maybe 10 more minutes here. People are talking about games that they like and didn't like. That's awesome. We've sparked a discussion. Here's a good question from a fellow named Kenny. Kenny comes onto YouTube and inquires of us, how often do you buy before you try? Now that is a good question, and that may be an interesting Board Game Breakfast topic or metagame topic in and of itself. A lot. That's the answer. I'd say at least 50-50. However, as a media content creator, and just because this is the hobby I love, and we don't even have cable. I just watch YouTube videos and stuff for entertainment, instead of TV these days. So I'm inundated a lot with board game industry and game information. So I soak up as much of it as I can because that's what I enjoy. So I do as much research as possible about a lot of the games that I buy. So even if I haven't played it yet before I buy it, because lots of times, living out in the boonies and stuff, I know, you're not being able to play with others as often as you want to. Lots of times I'll do as much research, watch a gameplay, watch a review from several different people to really get a feel and see if it's something that I think I would enjoy playing. And then I get it. And that kind of answers the question of how often I buy before I try. But that is a very interesting question. And I would like to see how my own experience and rationale for how I do it compares to others out there. If that's the norm or not. It's a good question. All right. Joshua asks, and has been answered, but I'll answer it again. Joshua asks, what state I live in? Euphoria, but when not that, Oregon. So, West Coast. Woo! Telling someone just earlier today that I live in Oregon. And now that I think about it, that person was probably Joshua. All right. No, not Canadian. However, I have been told by a certain podcasting personality that I am Canadian in spirit, which I'm still not sure if that was a compliment or not, but I just kind of nodded, so, all right. Joshua, after being told that I am from Oregon, says that explains it. Okay. I'm going to also take that as a compliment. Let's move on. Joshua then, again, hey, it's the Chaz and Joshua show now. Joshua also asks, what intellectual property would I like to see turned into a board game? Well, that question is also going to be answered in excruciating, nauseating detail in a couple of weeks on my 100th Board Game Breakfast Head in the Clouds segment. For episode number 100, I'm going to talk about that very thing. I've been waiting since summer. I've been waiting for episode segment number 100 to discuss that very thing. So just a couple more weeks and you'll find out the answer to that question. All right. Radek asks a good question, because something I think other people might enjoy. He asks, did you try playing Codenames using Dixit cards instead of word cards? I'm happy to tell you that at the this last weekend at the game club I went to, Codenames came out. And as they were getting it out, I said, oh! I heard about using Dixit cards instead of word cards as the 25 cards down on the table. And everyone that was setting up the game of Codenames all at the same time went, oh, let's try that. So we were in a big ballroom and everyone had brought games, and all the games were on tables around the perimeter of the room. So we're like, let's find a copy of Dixit. And we went through the entire perimeter of the room and there was not a single copy of Dixit that anyone had brought. So we all wanted to, and everyone thought it was an excellent idea, but we didn't get a chance to, and we had to play the normal way with just words. But if anyone else out there has played Codenames with Dixit, let me know what you thought of it, because I thought that was a really, really intriguing way to play it. Okay. Let's go down here. Just jumping again. All right, we got 10 more minutes here, so let's go to someone that hasn't spoken yet. We're talking about Canada, which, of course, blah, 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 Dances with Wolves. Joseph is in Oregon. Yay! For shame, no Dixit. I know. Okay, this is getting really boring listening to me rattle off questions, so I'll try to be energetic again. Kyle, backwards and forwards, asks, what's your opinion of MTJ, which I'm assuming is Magic the Gathering? Kyle. My opinion of Magic the Gathering, Kyle, is not very high, but just normal Magic the Gathering without the Kyle part. I was huge into Magic. I think Magic the Gathering is one of the new classics, right up there with chess and poker and insert your favorite game here that you think is a classic. Now, I'm a huge fan of Magic. I am really impressed that they've kept it fresh and going for this long, and still that when new expansions come out, that people are still clamoring for those expansions. It's fantastic. I just think it's amazing what they've done with that, and how a new game like that I think has that sort of longevity and flexibility has been introduced in our lifetime. And I have really high opinion of Magic. There was a point where we would travel over to a friend's house twice a week to play Magic nights. We'd go over there 2 times a week at one point to go play Magic. It's frittered away and calmed down a lot, but I still have all my cards and all my decks. I'm waiting until my 9-year-old is just a little bit older before I introduce her to it as well, and hopefully just start the whole thing again. All right. Jason Walker asks in regards to the using Dixit cards in place of codename cards. He asks, did you look for Mysterium instead? Because Mysterium has cards that are similar to Dixit ones that you could do the same thing. And the answer to that question is yes. We also looked for Mysterium, and that wasn't on any of the tables either. So yeah, we totally struck out with that. So I don't know what that says about our local gaming community, but I think it was also the last day. So a lot of people had already packed up and taken their games home for the weekend. So, all right. I have not played Kingdom Death Monster. However, a gentleman who works where my wife works is a huge gamer. He actually brought in Kingdom Death Monster one day. And it was just massive and drool-inducing. But I haven't got to play it, but I have admired it from afar. Okay. All right. 3 more questions that I'll go in here. Christian asks, going back to Oregon, one of the themes here, if I'm in the Portland area. No, I'm about 2 hours south of Portland. I'm in the Eugene, Oregon area. So that's where I'm coming out of. It's where I'm broadcasting my tones out of forever. See, going back to the ever. Okay. All right. Board Game Night asks or states that he loved the review of Tenzi. Thank you. I still get worried about stuff like that. But he asks, will you do more negative reviews like that? Not purposefully. I don't want to be seen as a bully or, someone who that's their shtick. I will say, though, that the Thrift Sift series, a lot of the little series I do, I give arbitrary, silly names to. The Thrift Sift series, which is about games I pick up secondhand or at thrift stores, that's usually about games that I find down at Goodwill that I just see and just make me go, what in the world is this? Those reviews are usually a little more sarcastic, negative, and fun, and experimental. So if you are looking for a little more, there's at least, I think almost a dozen of them, both on the Dice Tower and the Pair of Dice Paradise YouTube channel. There's about a dozen Thrift Sift episodes that already exist. So you can go and look for that. Oh, and second to the last question that I'm going to squeeze in here is from Nazca Games, which I'm hoping is Emerson. He says he's late. Sorry that he's late to the party. But what's my favorite game to play with V-Bug, who is my 9-year-old daughter, who's on a lot of the episodes. I usually let her pick the games. And she has 3 favorites. Right now, we've been playing a lot of Hive, the physical form of Hive. We played that just last night. She has been really into Stratego, which has been so neat because over the last few months, I've gone from just setting my pieces up randomly and just playing however my pieces lie and kind of beating her 75% of the time to now, if I do that, I beat her maybe 25% of the time. And I can see her putting the strategies together, and she makes little forts out of bombs, and she'll sometimes do a red herring and put like she'll put 2s behind her bombs or something and her big stuff somewhere else. And seeing her evolve her strategies has been really cool. So she's been enjoying Stratego, and I've had like this Stratego resurgence because of her enjoyment of it. And the third thing is her favorite game is Dungeon Fighter, the one with the big target with holes in it that you throw the dice from across the table. And you try to score, and you have to throw them funny ways over your head or with your eyes closed. That's her favorite game, and we're actually planning on playing it tomorrow. We actually made a play date for it tomorrow together. So we're going to be playing that. And so those are the 3 that I've enjoyed playing with her the most. But the reason I specifically wanted to mention Nazca Games' questions and Emerson is because I just recorded last week a podcast episode with Chris Renshaw from Boards and Swords that went up on his channel, his podcast, earlier this week. And we talked about BGGCon in that briefly. And I just wanted to mention that in that podcast episode, when we're talking about our favorite experiences from BGGCon, I mentioned when we were playing One Night Resistance, and Emerson from Nazca Games walked up to the table and said, "Oh, you guys are playing a social deduction game." He reaches into his backpack. "You want to play a prototype of one that I just made?" Like, yes, I so much want to play that game. But unfortunately, everyone at the table wanted to, but unfortunately just we were in the middle of this one and people were coming in and out and we didn't get to. And so I wanted to say, I mentioned it in the podcast episode, but since you're here, I just wanted to say that I hope, Emerson, that you didn't feel snubbed. I felt bad. I felt almost like we were like, yeah, but not really. No, that's one of my major highlights and major disappointments of BGG Con was that opportunity, but then not having it not happen. So I hope to be able to rectify that sometime this year with you at a convention, if you'll have me. Okay, one more question, then we'll shut off, and we'll see how this went. I'm looking for a question. Oh, Ed asks, what do you think of the Gamestorm convention? And this might not be a very good question to end on, because Gamestorm is a local area convention in Vancouver, Washington, which is like in the third week of March, around March 20th to 23rd, I believe. And Gamestorm is great. I've only been able to get to it once, year before last. Last year I had a scheduling conflict come up, and the hotel double booked poor Gamestorm, and they had to have their open gaming area in the parking garage of the hotel, which was just insulting, I thought. That was really actually made me upset. This year, they actually got 2 hotels for this coming March one. And they're like, yay, we got 2 hotels. We'll have plenty of space for Gamestorm. And then one of the hotels went out of business. So now they're back down to 1 hotel with barely enough space. So I'm really hoping that Gamestorm has better luck. I hear that next year, 2017's Gamestorm, they're already planning, and they're already planning a new venue for it, which is going to get a lot more of the facilities they need. But I'm hoping to make it to Gamestorm. I'm 50-50. I have my badge and I have my hotel reserved. But again, it's this weird time of the year. There's some trade shows and some other things. So it just depends whether or not I have a scheduling conflict. But anyone who's at Gamestorm, let me know how. And as long as I don't destroy myself, I hope to see you there. All right. I can't believe that this has been an hour. Thank you to everyone who has hung out this hour and listened to me prattle on. This has just been bizarre. Usually, not talking for an hour like this. I do that all the time, but it's just rare to have someone on the other end. So I appreciate everyone who has come along. And make sure to let the Dice Tower and Pair of Dice Paradise know how you feel that this whole metagames initial episode went, with the presentation at the beginning, followed by the Q&A about it, followed by the general Q&A. And we'll see how we can tweak, evolve, and keep the good stuff and improve the bad stuff and keep it going. In the meantime, be sure to subscribe to the Dice Tower and Pair of Dice Paradise on YouTube for more board game news, reviews, and content and commentary. And be sure you can talk to me anytime at Dice Paradise on Twitter. Woo! In the meantime, thanks for watching, and I will talk to you again really soon. Excuse me, I'm going to make my frozen nice face while I somehow figure out how to get the broadcast to end.